eyes are on what's happening in China. Very weak response from the United States, which shows you, and we'll talk about this a little bit more. We're talking about with Rick Riddell as well, just the position the U.S. is in when it comes to China, that we can't even call out the Chinese for their repressive actions against their own people, this zero COVID policy that people are completely locked down, and they've decided to take to the streets.
There was a fire that broke out, and the fire departments could not, because of the COVID restrictions, the fire departments could not go in and save people. And I think 10 people died or something like that.
I mean, that's insane.
And when that happened, the people actually spoke out.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening right now. And look, if that's what it takes, it's horrible that that's what it has to get to. But the fact that you have people, they know they're risking their lives. This is a much different situation than any of us going and protesting in the streets.
Unprecedented in China. It's also people in Hong Kong are protesting in solidarity with the people there. And our response is, oh, it's never been a good policy, the zero COVID policy. And we support free speech generally.
It is like the weakest statement. And it starts like going on to our then talking points. Like, well, we disagree with theirs. Here's our talking points. Not exactly supporting the protests that are going on in China when you actually are seeing what could be revolutionary moments in a country you really didn't think it could happen in.
There's unprecedented protests not seen since the protests in Tiananmen Square. So in decades. And it's a good reminder, too, that the Chinese Communist Party tries to show that imagery like everybody's on board in China, that everybody actually likes the idea of the Chinese.
That's their propaganda. Definitely makes you feel like
you realize there is a whole underlying group of folks who know they're oppressed, who know they have very little voice. They're actually protesting with blank pieces of paper so that the censors on TV have nothing to censor out. So they've figured out ways to protest.
This is the White House response from this morning,
right?
That came out.
We've said that the zero COVID policy is not a policy we're pursuing here in the United States. That's wonderful. We think it's going to be very difficult for the People's Republic of China to be able to contain this virus through their zero COVID strategy. We've long said that everyone has the right to peacefully protest here in the United States and around the world. This includes in the PRC. The strongest statement there is that people have the right to protest in the PRC, but they don't specifically respond to why people are protesting there. They just said, it's not a policy we're pursuing here in the United States.
Right. Well, that's good. And they're even saying that these are some of the biggest protests they've seen since the Tiananmen Square. So this is a legitimate, real protest that's happening in China. It's hard to get footage. There are clips and things you can see. You can see some of the drone stuff that's been happening there, which is pretty frightening. However, the stuff that has come out is pretty emotionally moving. And you hope that this actually leads us somewhere. They were chanting for Xi Jinping to step down. They were calling for the lockdown. Some of it in English also.
We are so reliant on China that it's like we can't even condemn when we need to condemn such horrendous actions, and we can't even support when we need to support these unprecedented protests that we're seeing in China. The Chinese people rising up against their authoritarian government, calling for an end to the Chinese Communist Party, calling for an end to President Xi. I mean, that is a bold statement. You're risking your life to make that kind of statement in China, and they're trying to get the world's attention, but the world is so reliant on Chinese goods and manufacturing that you can't even issue, tough statements.
Our intelligence agencies have been very clear that COVID originated in Wuhan, China, and that the Chinese scrambled to cover it up and really wreaked havoc on the world. We should never forget that because of what the secrecy of the Communist Party of China has done to the world economy. I would also add to that, Jordan, our concerns that China comes to Alaska early in the Biden administration and lectures the United States on our human rights record. Here is a country that systematically denies basic human rights to its people, lecturing us on American soil, and the Biden administration was incredibly weak. So this is now a pattern where the Biden administration is very nervous about standing up to China for some reason.
You're risking your life. I mean, there's no other way around it to stand up for just basic free. I mean, these are talking about the most basic of basic freedoms, just the freedom of movement or the ability for, like you said, the firefighters to come and put out a fire. But, because of our COVID policies. And again, we still don't get to the bottom of what did they do with COVID? How responsible are they? The more and more they take actions like this, the more and more they seem directly responsible for creating it and unleashing it on the world.